Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Next Level Real Talk Podcast, where we have conversations on the journey of personal transformation and the pursuit of lasting peace and happiness with Sheldon and David. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Next Level Real Talk Podcast. Once again, here we are, David and Sheldon.
Welcome back. Glad to have you all listening and
And
watching
we,
on YouTube.
yes, and we wanted to start off by thanking our guest from last episode, Lucas Moore, for coming on board and spending some time with us and sharing um, really candidly, open heartedly, bravely. It takes a lot of
Yep.
courage to just sort of talk about, what's really going on for you on a deeply personal level and just share that and be okay with that being put out here into the, you know,
Yeah. And
world.
if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, go back, listen to that one. Cause I tell you what, Lucas really, one, he opened up, and two, it's just the real of what everyone could be going through. And he even at the end says, hey, you need to reach out to me. So he knows that where he was, I loved his story and loved how it's not like, hey, I did this and got through it and I'm a happy person. He goes through it every day. When he talked about his
Mhm.
depression. And I loved how he talked about depression as his as an addict. What do you call that? I'm sorry, I just lost the word. The
An
His
addiction.
addiction. His
Yeah.
addiction. Yeah. I go, I never thought of that as being an addiction, but
Yeah.
that's his addiction. And so he has to work through that every day, every week, whatever it is. And he has
Mhm.
great tools. And so I encourage you to go back and listen to it. And if you haven't, and he's got some great tools, and
It was
appreciate him talking.
beautiful. It was
It really
beautiful,
was.
and he talking about his was his grandfather and how he had
Grandpappy,
touched so many
grandpappy.
people. Grandpappy, right? Grandpappy, and how
Yeah.
many people's lives that Grandpappy had touched, and how he was
Mhm.
looking at, you. It's like you have a choice. Do you want to sink into, you know, the effects of this way of thinking, this addictive thinking pattern, or do you
Mhm.
want to kind of push through, look at it, rise above it, um, and step up your game if you need to, or do what you need to do to self-care, right?
Mhm.
And become an inspiration and become a light for other people in their lives. And he has definitely done that, on the group that I know a bunch of people that we've all worked with him, and there's never anybody who says anything but absolute loving things about that man. And he deserves it all, right? And so uh it was awesome, like you're saying, David. You haven't heard, if you hadn't watched or listened to
Yeah.
it, definitely encourage you to. It's definitely worth it, and we definitely
Let me tell you,
grateful.
I learned something from listening to him. So
Yeah.
it's awesome. I took some notes and said, oh, got to do that. Got to look at
Yes,
that.
we both did. I'm
So,
100%, right?
and so
And
understand that's what this whole thing's about. It's like we're not the experts. We have some
right.
knowledge and stuff, but we're going to learn from you guys too. And
Yeah,
I learned a lot from Lucas. So Lucas says,
that's
"Oh, I'm
exactly
not
what I
much
was
of a
thinking of.
communicator.
It's like,
I'm a communicator." Well, okay, sorry, Lucas, yes you are. So, and you can tell your
yeah,
story pretty well.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And I was thinking the exact same thing. That's the whole point of why we were talking about, hey, let's
mhm,
do this thing, and we can start a couple episodes where we're talking about how we do things, but then we want to hear everybody else and how they do things, because we all have our story to share, but also,
mhm.
uh, you know, uh, can be a source of inspiration and wisdom. You know,
Yep.
um,
And if you love Southern
for
accents, listen up because Lucas has a deep Southern accent. I'm gonna tell you,
yes, he does.
I love it.
So, uh, anyway, and talking about that, we were talking about kind of like that idea of practice,
Hmm.
of there's a certain kind of discipline, that you have to stick with certain things. I like to think about it as this idea of integration, that we have tools that we develop, whether it's a meditative practice, a prayer practice, whatever that is, but you have to integrate that into every moment in your life.
Hmm.
Um, and that can be a challenge, right? That can be, and that takes a little bit of time. And that
It's
does, it's
Yeah, it's an effort because like when I started doing meditations or journaling, it's not something I've ever done in either of those, and it took an effort to say, okay, I need to do this. So today, oh, I didn't journal. I gotta get back and what was going on. And the meditation, it's not something you may be able to do every moment, or just start doing it slowly and go, okay, oh, I didn't do that this time. I'm gonna do it. Okay, get back into it. Just keep. don't get mad at yourself. Like, okay, let's just take a meditation and say, okay, I'm gonna do meditation every hour. Okay, let's just make up something. Every hour on the hour. Oh man, I missed 2 hours. Okay, do the next hour and just keep
That's it.
going with it. And just
Exactly.
don't get mad at yourself. Just say, okay, now you get back on track. Do this. Next time, I'm gonna do every hour. Oh, missed 1 hour. Okay, boom. It's a slow process of getting back, getting yourself on track. And they say it takes time to learn a new habit, and that's a new habit. And so, and
Yes.
that's the whole thing with integration. You have to do it and just slowly get better at it and integrate it into your daily life.
Yeah.
So,
100%. I I like to think of that idea of pursuing peace is no different than pursuing better physical health.
mhm,
It's the same. It's the same idea, and that integration, uh, and the discipline we're talking about. It's, and I know I've said this in one of the earlier podcasts about, you know, uh, if you go to the gym once and you work out, you tear down some muscles and you get a little sore. And if you never go back, everything goes back to the way it was. It's the same thing if you practice once, you do a meditation or you find some place of peace or you do some tech tool that, maybe you listen to something we did and maybe you journal one night and you say, yeah, I felt better. I released some stuff and I cleared out some thoughts, right? And then you never do it again. It doesn't help you. Like, it
mhm,
helped you that one moment, right? It's so there's a certain discipline and
yeah,
practice to saying, okay, these tools that I have, I'm going to use them every single day and I got to use them continuously. It's just like saying I need to go to the gym 5 times a week or 3 times a week or whatever, but I'm going to do it regularly and I'm not going to keep missing over and over again.
mhm,
Um, and as you integrate, as you practice and you learn to integrate, to me, it's like I always had this thing, and again, it's maybe that thing with traditional religion, right? It was like the idea, here we go again. I have to work on this. But that idea of this, a person that might go to church on Sunday and they're all like holier than thou and they're all like, oh, I'm so generous or whatever, and they show up every Sunday, and yet it doesn't integrate into their daily life.
Monday through Friday, Monday through
Monday
Saturday.
Monday through Saturday. Yeah,
Doesn't
maybe they're
happen.
cheating on their spouse, or they're abusive and mean and
Hmm.
belittling. Maybe they're cheating on their taxes. Maybe they're cheating on their business, and maybe they're ripping customers off. Maybe they're mean to their teammates and employees. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That they have all of these things about their behavior that haven't really been fleshed out and released. Because if you truly feel connected, if you're truly healed, if you're truly happy, those things won't happen. They
Yeah.
don't. You just don't behave that way. And it's not by dictate. It's not by, oh, I'm supposed to behave that way. You just don't feel
Yeah.
like that,
And
you know?
it's so funny because as you say that, traditional religion, that's my pastor keeps talking about. It's Sunday, but come Monday, most of us are gone. And
Yeah.
so you don't have that. He goes, so you need to have that connection, do what you're doing. And he talks about binge the Bible, reading the Bible. It's like we don't just come read it on a Sunday. So they have a thing called binge the Bible. They send it out every month. It's like, okay, these are
Mhm.
21 days. Read this for 21 days. You get into a pattern of doing what they're doing. Same thing that
Yes.
we're talking about. It's so him, instead of saying just come in Sundays and I'll see you next Sunday. Okay, we're gonna give you something throughout the week to do stuff. And they
Mhm.
have little stuff on Wednesday. He has a little podcast, not a podcast, a little thing he sends out. So it's like just keeping it there.
Yep.
And same thing you're talking about. So if you're
Mhm.
doing journaling, you may do it this day, and oh, I didn't do it for 5 days. Okay, well, next time do it for 2 days, and then
Yeah.
skip maybe a little bit if you don't feel like doing it every day. But keep going back to it. Otherwise, it will never happen again because you're just letting it go.
I
Yeah.
started doing a little bit of working out, and I don't want to say that word, that expression, because it might make people think that I'm actually doing something because it's so little. My motto has been maximum return with minimal effort. So how can I get some kind of return with very little effort? Because I'm just not a gym rat. So, um, but you just turned 60. I'm going to be turning 60 here pretty soon, right? And
Mhm.
it was around mid 58. I was like, maybe I need to start moving this body because I could feel it starting to fall apart and everything, right? And my shoulders were starting to ache and hurt, so I couldn't move them. I was shooting pains, and so I started to decide I was going to do push-ups every day. And did I talk about this on this? I don't think I have, right?
Nope, you
So I
haven't.
was going to do
Nope.
push-ups every day, and I couldn't even do a push-up. I mean, I couldn't get down. It was like the lamest little thing. And I said, I'm going to do 10 of these sad piece of shit push-ups. You know what I mean? They were worthless. They were like flex the elbow, and that was it. And I did 10 of them. I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to do 10 every day. That's it. I don't care. Whatever. They're going to
Mhm.
suck, but I'm going to do them. And it took about 2 weeks to the aching in the shoulder started to go away, and I could actually go all the way down. And then I got it up to 15 and now up to 20. And I've kind of left it at 20. But I do 20 every morning. That's it. Right. And I was
But that's
sick
doing
once or
something.
twice.
Mhm.
There was one dude who had a podcast and he said the power of incremental progress or small things done consistently, I think is the way he said it. The power of
Mhm.
a little bit of effort done consistently over time. Right. And have you ever heard that expression? They said if you studied something for a half hour a day every single day for 10 years, you'd be like a world leading expert. Something
Oh,
like that.
wow.
I think it's something like that. I think it's a
Mhm.
half hour. It was not very long. But they say that it's that power of incremental, continuous effort in a singular uh, direction. And so for me, it's push-ups, right? They take me 30 seconds or whatever, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I actually feel like things have changed. Like you can actually
Mhm.
tell. Um, it looks like
With
I work
minimal
out a
effort.
little bit with
I
little
mean,
minimal
20
effort, but
push-ups. Yeah. Mhm.
continuous, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, like you're saying. If you skip a couple days, that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there needs to be some sort of effort and towards peace, towards your happiness, right? Directed
Yeah.
inward, like we've been saying, turning that inward, looking inside, and dedicating some amount of time in your day and awareness to your peace and your happiness, and that you are worth that. That we are all worth that,
Mhm.
right? That our happiness matters. I have a friend. Shout out to Sandra if she, if she's listening to this. So shout out to her. She said this years ago, and it stuck in my head. She said, "My bliss matters."
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I,
Which
you
is
know,
true.
my happiness matters. My joy matters in the world, right? And uh, so dedicating some of our time and our awareness to saying, hey, you know what? Me being happy matters. And if I want to take a bath today because it makes me feel good, then I'm going to take a bath today. Or I want to go for a walk because that makes
Mhm.
me feel good. Or, you know what I mean? I'm going to do whatever it is. Some of these things are literally like self care practices. Um, my wife has a book called Sacred Self Care, and it's literally like little tiny things. Go, just light a candle and sit in the bath and just relax, or you know, buy some flowers and arrange them beautifully in your house because that beauty
Mhm.
makes you feel good. Um,
That's what makes you feel good, yeah.
those things matter because your happiness matters. Um,
Mhm.
but you have to, and then over time, as you are practicing that, right, and you're developing practices for that, um, you learn to practice that multiple times throughout the day. And it's like, I believe in Islam, they pray like 5 times a day, right? Do they face Mecca and pray? I'm sorry, I'm so ignorant
I'm
about it,
not sure.
but
I know.
I
Yeah.
believe they do. And it's 5 times a day, I think. Right. And I used to teach my clients, I'd say, hey, you need to do this short meditation 5 times a day.
Mhm.
And in Course in Miracles, they do these lessons. And at one point it gets to a lesson, and the lesson is kind of like a prayer, a little thoughtful thing to
Mhm.
think about. And it kind of builds up over time because it says your mind isn't ready for it. And at one point, it gets to every hour on the hour. It literally says every hour on the hour have this thought, and it's like one sentence. You
Mhm.
know,
And
I could choose peace instead of this. So whatever I'm
yeah.
experiencing, I could choose peace instead of that. Right. So every hour I stop and I go, huh, I could choose peace instead of this frustration I'm
So
feeling right now.
so as 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 we do this and you learn and you train yourself, it's called training, I would
Mhm.
call it. As you train yourself, you can use it in certain situations in quick instance. And I'm gonna bring what we were talking about before, because you're talking about having that peace. Because at work today, there wasn't peace. And I'm gonna bring it up.
There
And so
was
I won't
lack
mention
thereof.
there was lack thereof. And so any of my colleagues listening, you will know what's happening. So there was a lot of requests to print some things, and it comes to me, and that gets me away from my job as a librarian. And so between printing and copy room, I was
Because
going back
printing
and
is
forth.
like a side job or even
Yeah,
almost like a favor,
other other schools have
courtesy.
someone that does that.
Right.
That's their job, and so we
Yeah.
don't have that person anymore. And
Yeah.
so that's become. I don't make copies of regular, like a packet. I'll make color copies. I'll make posters. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I don't go in the copy room and make you copies. Oh, ain't my job. So a lot of requests came in today, urgent, Everything's urgent in everyone's world.
Everything's urgent, right?
so, so there were some things that were there, and I was getting very stressed, and I was losing my sense of me and my enjoyment of being where I was. And I just said, at one point, I said, stop. I told myself, stop. There was no one in that room, by the way. I said, stop. And I took some breaths. I just took about 3 or 4 breaths. You know what? I'll get it done. I'm not going to get that done right now. I'll do it when I have the time in this process. So that made a difference in my entire day. I was going down a dark, dark hole real quick because I was just frustrated. All this stuff I got to do. I go, whoa, stop. I'm not letting that going to take me down. Now, if it's stuff I didn't do and I forgot, okay, that's my problem. But this was like, no, this last minute stuff is not going to make me have a problem. David is going to be okay with this, or at work, Smitty's going to be okay with this.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it done, but it's going to be in the time frame that needs to process in my department. So that really helps. So that's just being able to do that in the past, doing my meditations and knowing when to stop and go, whoa, here it comes. Let's stop this train from going off the tracks.
It,
You know,
and when we talk about integration, the other thing is the pattern interrupt, because
yeah.
when we get triggered, you're down a thought pattern. Ah, that people, and your brain starts to go down that path, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it's continuous, it can feel like depression or anxiety or whatever, right? When it's continually doing that. But when you're going down that path, you were able to stop and say, wait a second, stop. Let me take some breaths here. And I think that part of the reason that you were able to develop that, right, was just like the course, like I said, the training and like these other practices where you're supposed to interrupt it several times a day and do a practice. When you were going through your stuff with the divorce, you were literally doing a meditation in between every class you taught.
Yeah.
Right. So that was
Mm-hmm.
every hour on the hour. You were
Basically,
literally
yeah.
doing it every hour on the hour. And part of that was feeling the connection. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Let me take a moment to get out of all the stuff that I'm feeling right now and connect.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing that, boom, light rushes in, radiates out, lifts out through the brain. You feel better. You may not be complete that time for you. You may not have been 100% better because you were in it pretty deep, but you
Uh-huh.
probably felt some level of relief every time you're like, ah, I feel a little bit better. I can get through this
Yeah.
next period at least, and it's
It
1
was
hour
it
at a
was
time,
it was period to period, yeah, is
period to
what I
period,
worked
1 hour at a time.
for.
But then the discipline again of saying, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this. And when you start to feel a little bit better, it gives you that incentive. Just like when you're working out, you say, hey, you know what? I walked that one lap a little fast. I did my 5 push-ups better than the 5 push-ups I did yesterday, even though it was fucking 5 lame push-ups. You know what I mean? It's like,
But they were
I
5
flex my
push-ups.
elbow. Yes, I flex my elbow a little bit more than I did last time. I'm going to give
There you
myself
go.
some credit for that, right? And then and then keep going and going. But it becomes self-reinforcing when you start to get that positive feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
So when you go, you know what, that 3 minutes of meditation and breathing and slowing the breath and just sitting there, I felt a little bit better. you know uh,
And like I was, how to say this, lucky. Okay, you got to look at things the right way. I was lucky that a I had scheduled breaks throughout my day. Not that
yep,
I scheduled them. The bell rang, kids
it
left.
was designed that way.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
came up,
Yep.
and the kids knew if I'm sitting back there and don't say anything to them.
Yeah,
Let
leave
them
them
let
alone.
them process. And it
Yeah,
was cool that they understood that. And that's one thing is just open up to people. By the way, now that I'm
yeah,
just kind of sidebarring, just
yeah.
let the kids know, hey, I have to do some meditation. Just I need it for me, so just let me have my moment. And they did. They respected that. And that 1.5 minute, 2 minute quick meditation, quick breaths of just to let the anxiety get out. Boom, I was ready for that whole next hour. And at the
Hmm.
end of the day, my boss is like, go home. Go home and rejuvenate. As long as you're here and you do your classes, I don't care what time you leave, just don't leave your classes early. Okay. So I would go home an hour early because he allowed that. But I, it's not as easy for some of you out there, and I understand that. So you got to have to find a time where you can do it. I mean, you maybe say, "Oh, the hour's up. I'm in a meeting, but I need to go meditate." Well, you have to adjust some things. So I know that
Hmm.
might be a little hard, but know to work around that, and know that that little moment, as Sheldon said, wasn't like I was like, "Yeah, this is all great. I'm ready to go." It's like, Okay, I can go for another hour. I can get this. I can get this 1 hour. Then I could go 2 hours. Then I could go 3 hours. I still did my meditations, but I knew I could. I was like, oh, I'm a lot better right now. I could feel
Hmm.
the goodness coming through and the
Yeah.
bad going out, the anxiety going, whoosh,
Yeah.
just letting
The
it flow,
release
the release.
a
So
little bit.
yeah,
And it might not have been
no,
complete,
yeah, it's
but it
not
was
easy.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, it may not be totally easy because of your time of what you're working at, what you're doing, um, but it may be that 1 minute you're driving down an elevator. That may be your meditation time. So just know, pick the moments where you can,
Yep.
and know that that's my moment. And if you have to
Yep.
say, "Hey guys, I have to go cook. After we get a drink of water, go down the elevator." There's my 1 minute.
Yep.
Okay, if you're on the 15th floor, go down to the first floor. I don't know how long that takes, but
And
so.
it can literally be just like slowing the inhale, slowing the exhale.
Hmm.
Like you said,
Oh, it
you
is.
did today. It's just slowing down the breath, taking
Hmm.
a little bit fuller breath, slowing the breath, and that has dramatic effects. We talked about that before, how that has dramatic effects on your physiology, right? Um,
Yeah.
and just relaxes you. When we were talking about this idea of integration and practicing and the pattern interrupting throughout the day, a story, I don't think I've shared this. And again, I was doing the Course Miracles lessons. I just started that whole thing, and I got to that part where it said every hour on the hour, and I was in
Hmm.
the process of managing an auto body shop, Superior Automotive in San Francisco at the time, and it was pretty crazy and busy. The body shop world can be. I don't think I had fully mastered some of the ideas about, structure and organization, stuff like that. So we were running around. We used to call it firefighter mode, putting out one fire to the
Hmm.
next all day long. And that's how a lot of body shops are. And that's how this one was for the most. It wasn't terrible, but it was busy all the time. Kind
Hmm.
of that frenetic pace that is constantly going on. And I'm sitting there and I used to write these little lessons, which are again like prayers on a little 3x5 card, and I'd have it in my pocket. And this is a day of the flip phone.
Cool.
So this is a while ago, right? So I didn't have an easy timer, right? And I'm going, fuck, man, how am I
Mm.
supposed to do this thing every hour on the hour? There's no freaking way. I'm in the middle of running a body shop,
Boom,
and
boom,
I
boom,
don't,
boom, boom. Yeah.
I'm, what am I supposed to do? And I'm trying to figure it out, right? And I wanted to stick with the plan, right? So I'm like, okay, I got to do this thing.
Hmm.
Again, had a certain amount of discipline and dedication towards this whole process, and I'm sitting there, and I look up, and it was a big room that was a big square, and it was like a bullpen. It was like a tables all a counter all the way around the outside of it, right? And so we all sat
Mm.
along the outside of this big room. There's like four of us, and I look up, and on this shelving that goes up, it's about 2 feet down from the top of the ceiling. There's these two sundials,
Oh.
hourglasses, and I'm
Hmm.
looking at the thing, and I'm like, "Hey, is that an hourglass?" And the owner's like, "Yep." And I'm like, "How long does it measure?" And he looks at me like I'm an idiot. And he's like, "An hour."
Yeah. It's an hourglass, dude.
Yeah, he literally like, "My how long does it measure?" Well, they have different times on those stupid things. Is that a real hourglass? And he's like,
I
"Yeah."
know. Which
So,
I get what you were at. It's like, is that really an
so,
hour? It's just
so,
like,
so fuck you, man. So I take the thing down and I would sit it right next to my computer on my desk,
oh.
and I would just flip it, and so I could be anywhere in the office and I could look
Okay.
over and the thing would be empty. And like you were saying, hey, if it comes time and you need to do it, but you're busy, finish what you're doing or whatever. It doesn't have to be right that instant. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I would sit there and I would look over across the desk and I'd see the hourglass was empty. And I'm like, oh, and I'd finish whatever I was doing and I would go into the bathroom and that's where I did my stuff. I
Hmm.
would I would do my little things. I would get on my knees and pray in the fucking bathroom of the shop. Like I would be like, oh my God, because I was so angry and pissed off and wanting to release that stuff that I would do these lessons in it was a tiny little weird bathroom, but anyway, um yeah, so it kind of was this weird thing where it just felt like I was supported in that desire
Hmm.
to find peace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wanted to dedicate this time. I wanted to dedicate my life. I wanted to be, I wanted, I was had done that prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. So I was like, it was all about being in service,
Yep.
and I'm doing this process, and I'm trying to not be so fucking pissed all the time. You know what I
The
mean?
angry.
And
Hmm.
and then I'm like, okay, how the fuck am I going to do this? And I look over, and there's this freaking hour, and I'm like,
Hourglass.
oh my God. And there were two of them. And because
Hmm.
I broke one.
Oh. Nice.
I broke the one because I just banged into it one time. It fell over and it
Mhm.
broke. And it was kind of funny because everyone in the shop was like, "Hey, what's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just an hourglass. I like to keep time of stuff." And I would just, that's all I said. It's just a
Mhm.
reminder for me of time passing, something like that. And they're like, "Oh, cool." And then if they try to mess with it, hey, don't touch it.
Yeah.
Leave it alone. It's
Leave it.
mine. Don't touch it. I got it. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
that's
they'd be
good
like,
though. Yeah, because you were saying, you don't have to do it on that hour. You don't have to do 24 sessions. Let's say you're up 24 hours. You're not going to meditate maybe that 24 hours. It may be by the time you're done 18, because by the
yep,
time you see the glass, okay, I got to finish this. Takes a little bit of time. When you restart it, okay, I'm an hour
yeah.
20 in. Okay, that's fine.
So
That's
even if you're
okay.
up there 12, 14 hours and you do 5 sessions a day, that's life changing.
That's great.
It's
That is
life changing.
awesome.
It
Yeah.
truly is. Um,
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was like I had to do it hourly because I was in stress mode at school. I don't say stressed, you know what I mean, though.
mhm.
Me having anxiety and having to teach was like, and so just
Yep.
taking that time. So that, yes, sometimes you might need more, but if you're like now, I don't need it every hour on the hour. I can do it.
Right.
Boom, it comes when I need it. Like, oh,
Yes.
take a breath. And I loved how you said earlier. I didn't even think of it that way. Just breaking the pattern. I broke that
Yes.
pattern of, oh God, Jeff, oh,
Yes.
I can't do
Yes.
this. How am I gonna get this done? Whoa, stop.
Yep.
Stop. And I was talking to, and another thing, I was talking to Sarah came in. I was explaining to her, our educator, paraeducator, and hi paraeducator. Sorry, Sarah, I didn't say that right. So she's our ed mentor. So she helps train the teachers and all that. She's phenomenal. Shout out to Sarah Pastura, love you to death. Um, I bounce stuff off of her. She bounces stuff off of me. It's great. And so she came in. I was kind of telling her what was going on, and she's like, "Yeah, we're talking about some other stuff because she has the same thing. People put stuff on her, and she goes, 'Oh, I gotta do this. We gotta do this.' And I go, 'Sarah, stop, stop. I know you things aren't working right on pattern with us.' I go, 'We got you.' I go, 'Student assistants will put the things together that you need for tomorrow, and we'll deliver them tomorrow. Go in the room. Her little office is in the library. I go in there and just make a list of what you need and what you need me to do.' I go, 'Just, we got you.' And she's like, okay. And so she went in, did a couple things, came back out. 'If you guys could do boop, boop, boop.' I go, perfect. And she goes, 'I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna go doop, doop, doop.' Okay, great. Her day was good. So it kind of got her off of her
Yeah.
pattern
Her
of going,
pattern. Yeah.
yeah. And so it kind of made her go sit down and think things through real quick.
Yep.
And so it did help. So you may be able to help others by
Yeah.
when you learn that. Just, hey, you just stop for a second. Take a breath. So
Yes. Stop, drop, and breathe.
there we go.
So,
Stop, drop, and breathe, baby.
and, and and those things, and when that mind gets cleared out like that, you think better, right?
You're because
So
it's all in there. You go, oh, get rid of this, and like, oh, it all calms down. Go, okay, this is what I need to be thinking, and having her write things down because I do that too. It's like, wait, stop. I go, oh, I got so much to do. Well, write them down. Oh, okay. Well, this is really, I can do that tomorrow. Okay, this is what I need to do right now. Boom, 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 and it lets your brain, rather than get caught up in its own little mess, it
mhm.
allows you to clear it. It's all still there, but instead of going around in circles, it's all now in order. It's filed.
Yes.
It's in a file rather than
Yes.
in a pile. It's in a file, not
Yes.
a pile. Ooh, I'm gonna trademark that one. In a file, not a
Write that
pile.
write that one down.
I know.
It's the these are the practical real world benefits of a spiritual practice,
There we
because I
go.
think that, on one level, you can talk about this stuff helping you to feel a deep and profound connection within your heart to your creator, to God, to, you know, to whatever you feel, your soul, the self in Hinduism, right? To that essence of the divine within you, that when you quiet, you feel that. You can feel that on some level. And it can take, again, some practice and some time. And at some point, you'll feel a difference, right? And you're on one
Yeah.
level, you can talk about that and how deep and profound and transformative that is, because it is. But on
Mhm.
another level, you can just say, hey, when your mind is calmer, you're going to think clear and make better decisions. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And
Mhm.
so it's like it's not one without the other. It's both and, right? They both
Mhm.
happen. You can have both. So this practice of pattern interrupting, of breathing quietly, of taking a moment to just do a breathing practice, is profoundly transformative, but also eminently practical, right? It just makes
Hmm.
your life, you feel less stressed, or you're a little bit happier. Maybe you laugh a little bit more at work. You get more things done easier, right? So you're not as
Hmm.
tired at the end of the day. And yet, on another level, you can take that, and if you're really paying attention, you can find a deep and profound connection with your higher power, however you choose to approach that and call that, that is truly transformative. And I do think that until you've experienced that transformative power alive, radiant within your own heart, until you've really experienced that, whatever you're doing is just a belief system. It's a mental
Hmm.
thing. Oh, I believe in this. Oh, I've read that, so I believe this. Until it's activated within you and transformed you, which to me is like the meaning of being born again, right? And those
Hmm.
ideas, to when that kind of personal transformation, or a baptism, right, is this ritual of rebirthing, right? Of Until you've done that, um, then it becomes a mental function of belief. This is something I believe. When it becomes something known, it's different.
Yeah, so they're actually just being able to live it, not just know it and understand it. It's just taking it in and living it and making it part of your
Yes.
life. Is
Yes.
I'll tell you, and I know I reference Pastor Darren a lot, but shout out to Pastor Darren. He always says with the Bible, you got to read it, you got to live it. If you just read it, you're not doing anything. You got to read it, you got to live it.
Yeah.
So if you're learning something in school, you got to read it, understand it, and if you just walk away, you don't really learn it. You're done. So here, as we're doing this stuff, learn the stuff, put it in, and then practice the stuff, and that's where you're gonna learn it. You gotta live it.
Yeah.
That's how you learn to live.
Yes, exactly. Um, yes, and that's what I mean by integration, right? Is
Totally.
that idea. It
Mhm.
has to be an integrated aspect within your own heart, within your own beingness, and transformative within that place. And
Yeah.
that's the true benefit of any true spiritual practice. Of
and it's baby steps. It's not like, okay, oh, okay, Sheldon told me to do this meditation, I'm going to do this, I'll be so perfect tomorrow. No, it takes time to learn the process. Some people are quicker than others, we understand that. Everyone's different, so don't get mad at yourself if you're, this is taking a lot of time for me to really understand this. Well, it depends on what you're going through, depends on what's going on in your life, what busyness you have. But as you slowly practice it, you learn it more, and it becomes more of your life, and you live it. So just
Mhm.
take that time, know that there's baby steps involved, and just be able to take those baby steps because it doesn't happen immediately.
Yes. Beautiful. Um, did I mention that? Am I already repeating myself? The Tao Te Ching has that saying that says, "The way that is the way isn't the way," and that's a very loose translation. But
Ooh, say that again.
I talked to someone who was a native speaker Mandarin Chinese, who was also a big follower of the Tao, and I said, "This is how I interpret that first line. Is that valid and correct?" And she said, "Absolutely." Even though when you read the literal translations, it's not said like that. I said, "I've always thought of this to mean this: the way that is the way isn't the way." And so, and what that means is, if I say, "This is what worked for me, do this," just like you're saying,
Hmm.
you're going to experience that practice completely different because you're
Yes.
different, right? So
Hmm.
you have to take that, even if you're going to say, "Okay, I'll follow those rough guidelines," but it'll be different for how it feels and
Exactly.
integrates for you, right? So each one of us has our own unique perspective. So even if I'm reading the Bible, I'm going to get something completely different out of it than you do, or your
Exactly.
pastor, or anybody else in the world, right? Because
Hmm.
we are bringing all of our own mental belief systems, our own understandings, our own concepts, our own thought processes, our own experiences, life experiences, and we're interpreting through that lens, right? So
Hmm.
everything is interpreted through this lens, this filter of how we see the world, right? And so
Exactly.
that makes everything unique to each of us. Um,
And that's where diversity in this moment is huge,
mhm,
because diversity is, this is like the ultimate of diversity, because every single person will do it differently. I mean, I could do a minute meditation, you may do a 3-minute meditation. minute and a half may be too long for me at this moment. I don't
Hmm.
know. So, one, understand that you are not different. You are different, but not in a negative way. It's
Yeah,
okay
you're
to do things
unique.
differently. You're unique.
Yes.
There we go. You're unique. And if you are working with somebody else and helping them through a process, know that they are unique. They're not going to, you
Mm,
can say, why aren't you over this now? It's been three
right.
weeks. You should be over this.
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
was over it in 2.
yeah, it's like,
Well,
well,
good for
awesome.
you,
I'm
asshole.
not. Yeah, so it's understanding that they are different
Yeah.
and unique, and so help
Yes.
them slow through that process, which is
Yep.
awesome. I went very slow. I mean,
Yep.
in my little process, and I'm okay with that, But I know some people can go like, Boop, but make
Dude,
sure you're not hiding.
you and I were what we call slow learners.
Yeah, still am,
Yeah.
still am.
I'm a slow learner.
What's the first step to recovery? Admit it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I'm a slow learner. Had to be beaten upside the head multiple times or I started, okay,
Oh,
maybe I need to
like,
try
oh,
differently.
that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah, so know that it's okay where you are. It's because
yes.
you are in your process, and accept others in their process where they are.
Yeah. That's
So
beautiful.
yeah,
And I think that's really hugely profound, right? It's just being able to accept where you are and say, okay, take some pressure off, right? And kind of calms a little bit of that chatter of the mind.
it's
You
a
know,
guy
that,
smile. That's our smiley. I'm sorry, I'll keep going back to him.
oh gosh, here he goes again. Because gosh
I don't,
darn it. What's it?
I'm good enough.
Gosh darn it. People like
People
me.
like me. Oh yes, that man will always come back as a good theory. So yeah, just I think of going through things. Okay, your teaching for the week is what your goal for the week is. Just if you start like myself getting in that pattern and going like, whoa, stop a minute. Doesn't mean stop and walk away and for an hour and go, I'm leaving work. I'm gonna go have a coffee. Or just stop and go, okay, what can I do? So basically, I wrote my little notes, break the pattern. Stop. If you
Yes.
see something happening, break the pattern.
Yep.
Stop, drop, relax, not drop to the floor, drop, and relax, and then breathe. Get a couple breaths. Just do. I just did 4 today. Say so. See the pattern happens. Stop, drop, relax, and take some breaths, and then you can start thinking a little bit better. And the other part of that is if you see someone going down into a pattern and you know them, don't just walk up to someone general. I mean, but someone just say, hey, hold on a second. I want you to do something for me real quick. Take a breath. I know it's stressful right now. Stop a minute. Give me 2 breaths.
Mhm.
Okay, here's what I need you to do. What were you thinking about? What do you need to get done? And help them through that process. And that may be them starting down the new process. Like, wow, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
So,
That's
so if
cool.
you can do it, make sure you can help others do it at the same time. So we want
And
to
it can,
heal and have peace, but we also want others to have the same peace. So
are
I
you
said,
there?
yeah, I said, we want the peace. We want to find that peace and happiness on our journey, but we also want to help others find that peace and happiness. It's not something like,
Yes.
I got it. I don't want you to have it. It's, we want to be able to have
Right.
everybody have it. If you are that way, then you don't have peace. I'm just telling you.
I was
So,
just thinking the same thing. I said, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, it's probably. I don't know how deep that whole thing penetrated. If that's how you're thinking about it."
so, so at least we're both saying the same thing.
Yeah, totally. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Let me know
So,
how that
but
one
yeah.
goes.
So
I
that's
was
the
going to say,
challenges for this week.
yeah, even as simple as driving. You're driving to
Mhm.
work and somebody cuts you off, and then normally you get all pissed off and you start wanting to honk the horn or flip people off or whatever, right? Pattern interrupt. Hey, can I stop right now and just take a couple deep breaths and let the person in?
Mm,
Maybe let
I
me slow
love
up this
that.
time. Maybe they're in a real rush. Maybe their mom is in the hospital and they need to get to them. You don't know what their
You
situation
don't know
is.
what's going on in their life.
Maybe they need a blessing of, hey, I hope that you make it safely and on time where you need to be.
Hmm.
Nothing but love to you,
Exactly.
brother. And I'm going to let you in, and boom, maybe that shifts because you stop that pattern. Hey, fucker, I was here first, and it's not fair. Whatever.
Yeah.
you know,
It's like stop,
you stop, drop
yeah,
into your heart, right?
and
Take a
breathe.
couple of deep breaths, and see if you can shift it. And if you can't,
Yeah.
that's okay too. But just take a couple of breaths and go, okay, And even doing that, so there's simple little places where you can learn to practice that
I love
integration.
that. I love that
Um,
about just in the car when you're
yeah,
driving.
How many of us get that way in a car?
And you
It's
might have to do
super
that
calming.
several times. You might have to do that several times, depends on how far you drive to work. So it
Yeah,
may take a lot of
exactly.
practice to do
No doubt.
those. So
You look at that as this beautiful opportunity to practice multiple sessions of deep breathing in one commute.
exactly.
I got 4 sessions of breathing in my commute before
How
I
far did you
even got.
drive? 5 miles? Oh, yeah.
I used to, and this, get up in the morning, do my breathing, sit up in bed. So I would, wasn't in bed, sit up, do like a little 1 minute, 2 minute meditation, get dressed, sit there. I was putting my boots on before I was going to work. So I'd sit on the sofa and I would do like another 3 minute thing. I didn't have the radio on the whole time I commuted. So I was doing breathing and totally
Mm,
practicing. I was very much in the zone the whole time I was driving. So I had about an hour commute and I would be in a pretty good space. I'd park the car and I would sit there like 5 to 10 minutes. So I did like 4 sessions before I even got into work. Because at that time, my boss was not in a good space and he'd start
mhm.
yelling at you from the second you walked in the office.
Wow.
Get in here
Wow.
now. Like that. Like you'd walk in the door and be like, get in my office now.
Can I put
And
my
I'd be
lunch in the
like,
fridge? Nope.
no, literally, Dave, I'd say, hey, can I turn my computer on first? He'd be like, no, get in here. He start going over fast. Why does this? And I'd be like, hey, I don't even know. I haven't even woken up yet. You mind if I turn my computer on first? I'll take a look and I'll give you an answer. He'd be like, no, because I was like in this totally zened out space because I had been all these sessions already, and I would be a good
Mhm.
mood. I'm like,
Like,
hey,
"Meh."
you know what? I'm sorry. I have no idea why I did that. You want me to change it? And I
Yeah.
was pretty good, pretty locked in, but it would usually take a little bit longer before you'd start to get to you, and then you'd have to do a session. But
Mhm.
the
Wow.
those little practices during the commute in the morning set me off to the pattern of having a good space. Like I started in a pretty rock solid place from the beginning. So don't underestimate that. That's the homework we're saying.
Mhm.
Initiate some practice sessions, initiate that pattern interrupt, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Um, so you can practice it when you're driving. You can practice it whenever. You practice it when a coworker says something. You practice it when your spouse says something,
Mhm.
partner
Yeah.
says something, friends say something. It doesn't matter. You know,
Yep.
take a little deep breath. You know, interrupt the pattern of what the normal reactive reaction would be, and practice that as many times during the day as you can. And even if you're not being triggered, if you practice just stopping and taking a couple of deep
Yep.
breaths.
I was just gonna say, even if it's something small, say, "Well, that doesn't really bother me." Kinda no. That's a moment just to practice the little thing, because that little
Yes.
thing, then when the big thing happens, it's like, "Oh, I know what
The,
I'm doing. I got it."
okay, we're trying to wrap this up, but the course
I know.
has a saying that says minor irritation is the same as murderous rage.
Mm,
Let that one sink in. Minor
mhm,
irritation is the same as murderous rage. And I was always like, what the fuck are you talking about? Minor irritation is the same. But it's like it's either love or fear.
mhm,
Okay, those are the two. Like you're either in love or you're in fear, and fear generates all the other things like anger and jealousy, shame, blah blah blah, because you're in some kind of fear.
mhm,
So you're either in the state of loving kindness, expansive, unconditional love, or you're in a state of fear. Um, and so, uh, if you're not in love, it doesn't matter how far out of it you are. Does that make sense?
yeah,
It doesn't
mhm,
matter. You're out. The goal is get back in as
get
fast as
back
you
in.
can. You know what I
Mhm,
mean? Just find that
yeah,
way back quick. The sooner the better. Doesn't matter
mhm,
whether you're like all the way down the railroad track and on the train and you're way down that momentum or you just hopped on, get off. That's the
yep,
point, right? It doesn't matter how
get off.
far. They're all the same. They're all not peace.
Yeah,
You're
and I
either
always
in peace or you're not.
when you and I were talking, when I was going through everything, I always talked about me floating out in the ocean. I was floating out
Hmm.
I was on a raft, and I'm like, wow, how did I get that far from the shore, which is the train, kind of the
Hmm.
correlation. I'm like, okay, I know the shore's there. It's gonna take me a long time to get there, but I'm gonna work my way back slowly. And so it's like, okay, I'm getting closer.
Yeah.
Work your way back. Just know that that train's going. You can slow it down and get it back on track. So
Mm.
it's just
Okay.
find your expression. Yeah, I'm totally with you
Yes.
on that.
Yep. Yep. So with those that homework,
Yep, the homework. Whoop, whoop. Gotta have homework.
Dave can't stop assigning that homework. So if you're ever one of his students, you should maybe comment and say, "Hey, can you stop cut out the homework, please?" So,
Exactly.
hey, we appreciate your support for listening. If you're listening at this point,
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Hopefully, you got something out of this. Like, subscribe so that you don't miss anything. Um,
Yeah, because
share it with friends or family. We would
every
really
time we put
love
a new one
for.
in, every time we put a new one in, it'll pop up and let you know that we have a new episode, and
Yep.
so that helps you. It helps us know that we got some people out there that we can kind of connect with. And if you ever need anything, definitely let us know. And um, we're excited that you're like Sheldon said, we're excited you're on this journey with us. So
Yeah,
we want to hear from.
definitely.
Eventually, we start hearing from you. We'll have some new guests coming up, and you can hear from them.
Yep. Give us a comment. Give us some feedback. We'd love to hear it.
Hmm.
All right. Love you guys.
Yep. Love you all. Keep a smile on, and we'll see you
Smile
next
on.
week.
Take care.